Hey everybody, I'm Avatar04 here with another season review for CW's The Flash series, and I believe I've been away for a while, but I believe the last video I uploaded was the Season 1 review of Flash, and I think that was right before Season 2 started. So yeah, I've been away, and I'd planned to do a mid-season and maybe even episode by episode for the really big episodes for Flash Season 2, but just never got around to it. But I knew for sure I would do a Season 2 overall review. And the finale finally aired last night. It was amazing, blew me away. I have so many theories going into it. I'm so excited. And yeah, I just have a lot to say, a lot to discuss. And I typed myself up this massive outline, so I'll try not to run too long because I don't like to watch really long discussions or videos. I don't know if you do, but I'm trying not to keep it that long. Uh, so yeah, let's start out with asking, is it better than season 1? Which is so good, and I've rewatched it several times. I've rewatched only a few episodes of season 2 because the thing is, you can only, without paying for it online, and I know I'll get the Blu-ray or DVD when it comes out, but that won't be for several months. And while the season's airing, you can't really find it online anywhere, and unless you pay. And I haven't been able to rewatch many of them, which stinks because I was planning on rewatching the whole thing and then making a video, but I don't want to wait that long. I'm so excited I want to talk about it now. So, but I do remember it a lot because I've been rewatching as much footage as I could for each episode. I really, I might miss like a few really brief details, but overall, I have the summary in my head of each episode that happened and what I thought of it. But okay, back to the question. Better than season 1? I think it is as a fan. Critically, I think season 1 has a beat because there's a lot going on in season 2 that they really it it gets really confusing, and I don't know if they do the best job explaining everything, and it gets kind of bumpy at places more than I think in season 1. I think season 1, especially the second half with Reverse Flash, everything with him, since he's kind of like the classic Flash villain, that was just so great. I think critically season 1 is better, but if I had to choose a favorite, which for reasons I'll get into later with Zoom and everything, season 2 is my favorite. That's what I would say. Favorite episodes, ones that came to me. I have one that's just like automatically pops in my head, which is Welcome to Earth 2. And these aren't really in any order. It's really hard for me to, at least the first top 3 are kind of really neck and neck, and it's really hard to um, really decide that. But kind of like with my Avatar and Korra rankings, if you haven't seen those, I was originally Avatar Korra channel. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check those out. But when I sat down and went through all these episodes, I had a hard time. I narrowed it down to like 5 or 6, and I have good things about say about each of them. But weighing the positives and negatives, it was just really hard. But I think Welcome to Earth 2 is my favorite episode. Then the finale, The Race of His Life, which aired last night, so I just added it like a few minutes before I started this video. Typed in my thoughts for the finale real quick. And then Escape from Earth 2, which is the second half of the Welcome to Earth 2 two-parter, episode 14 of season 2. Then the crossover between Flash and Arrow, because if you don't know, Arrow, which also airs on the CW, the original DC Comics show on there, they cross over a lot, at least like hint at each other, and they have one big crossover episode. That was called Legends of Yesterday. It set up Legends of Tomorrow, which is another DC show on there. So that was really good. Those are my main 5 that just popped in my head. And I have some honorable mentions for various reasons. I have King Shark, which is episode 15, where it's really, except for the ending where you get the major Zoom reveal, it's kind of filler, but you have some cool things like Diggle and Lila, or Lila or Layla? I'm sorry, I'm blanking. From Arrow, it's one of those. They come over to help Barry fight King Shark, which we got a glimpse of. He's a Flash villain from the comics. If you don't know the comics, you probably would think it's kind of stupid, a giant man shark, but still, it's cool. And that's my honorable mention for that, because the visual effects for TV, that especially on CW out of all places, is just stunning. Like, if you look at King Shark, especially one shot where he's leaping out of the water, and it and it slows down, I guess, to show it off. It's amazing. Like last season for an Emmy, they got nominated for the Gorilla Grodd episode, and they had a Gorilla Grodd episode this time, but I think King Shark has a beat. So if he gets nominated, which it should, King Shark should be the episode that it's nominated for, just because of that. I mean, there's a lot of episodes that they could be, but that, it was so CGI heavy and it was amazing. But once again, the rest of the episode, besides the ending, was like, it's an average, just good episode. The next one is The Runaway Dinosaur. That's episode 21. So toward the end, like 2 weeks ago. And originally, I was really disappointed with this episode, because it was a big-time director, big-time writer, and there was so much hype for it, and so many people, like critics and everything, like, this is by far the best episode of Flash. And watching it, I was like, Then rewatching it, I definitely don't think it's the best episode or my favorite episode, but it's really important for Barry's character, and it sets up the whole like thing from that point on about him being overconfident, kind of, and what happens with Henry, and learning to accept his mother's death finally. It's really, really emotional and heavy for his character. So yeah, I had a rewatch, big change of opinion on that episode. Still don't think it's the best, like a lot of people say, but for Barry's character, it's really, really important, and it deserves a spot just because of that. Because I mean, he's the main character, and they need to develop it, and that's really important for him. And The Darkness and the Light, I think is what it's called. I'm pretty sure I checked that. Episode 5 of this, as I'm getting ready to say, I'll discuss the first half and the second half and the pros and cons of each. The Darkness and the Light is an interesting one on this list, because I remember this was my favorite episode in the first half up to that point. Like, just automatically I knew this was my favorite episode. It had Dr. Light, and like Linda's doppelganger from Earth 2. It started the whole Earth 2 thing. And Patty and Barry, which I'll discuss that later on. I'm kind of skimming over these things because I'll talk about everything, all the characters and everything detailed later. But that episode is the highlight for the first half, I think, in terms of just a random episode. Obviously, there's some that stick and are more plot heavy, but in terms of just the average filler episode, filler, I guess you could say, because of an episodic villain, like they defeat them, okay, cool, and there's not really much to it, to the overall plot. That's the best in my opinion for that. Yeah, okay, let's start. The first half discussion, this is where I'm going to start to have a lot to say. Like season 1, the weakness of The Flash is that I think there's too many episodes. There's a lot of episodes, same with Arrow, kind of. They give them 23 episode seasons when they should give them 16, I think, for like Legends of Tomorrow. Because they end up with about that number, exactly, like 10 or so episodes where they contribute to the plot, but just a little bit. They're not, like, you could easily skip them and you wouldn't miss anything, really. You might just miss one reveal or one thing that they would show on the next, like, previously on if it's that important. Like, there's a lot of episodic villains that just get defeated in that episode, and you're just like, okay, they're dead now, or they're in prison. So, yeah, that's definitely the Flash's weak point. I think it would, it's not gonna, at least for this season, it's not gonna go down in episode count, but that'd be the one thing I think that would really make it a lot better. The first half, one of the first things we see is Wells' doppelganger, which makes us freak out because we knew him as our first Flash, and there was a theory about him being Zoom. I was like, oh, please no, because that would just kind of repeat season 1, but it ended up being, he was a total jerk, and it was hilarious. Like, the chemistry, especially at first, and he ended up being, he has a major arc this season, and he's not really likable at all. Like, the first few episodes, he's such a jerk, and if I would like slap him in the face if I actually knew him. But I'll talk about more about him later because I have a whole section on his character. But yeah, his doppelganger we're introduced to, and he ends up being a major player in the season. Introduction to a new Firestorm. The setup for Legends of Tomorrow. Obviously, there's a new Firestorm since Ronnie died in the premiere, and you have to find Martin Stein's like new partner, and they have to be compatible. And there's that episode about that. It's really good. So yeah, that's a kind of important. We get introduced to Zoom, obviously. Barry and Patty in the first few episodes, and I have a discussion point for Patty just later on, but I ended up really liking her. But I was really surprised about that because it seemed like she was a really minor character. I knew she wasn't really gonna stay that long. I actually thought she was gonna die. I was like, I swear, Zoom's gonna kill her because her and Barry were getting really, really close, and you know he's gonna end up with Iris eventually. Just come on. And that's what happens in the comics. So if they go by the comics, they don't have to, but odds are they will, especially for something like that. Um, yeah, I just ended up really liking her. And the first half is their relationship, basically, the like side plot. Earth 2 Metahumans. Each episode you get the episodic one is from Earth 2, and they say like Zoom wants you dead or something, and Zoom sends them over there. That's the point. Um, then you get the crossover / Legends of Tomorrow setup. I've already said that about that episode. Really, really good. Return of former villains in the mid-season finale, the Christmas episode, as they always have. You got the Weather Wizard, which is really cool. Trickster, played by Mark Hamill, and Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash comes episode 11. It's weird how I like memorize these; they come up in my head right away. Episode 11 was called the Reverse Flash Returns, which is appropriate. And you get Ebard since it's confusing, but I'll get into the stuff later. How they kind of try to explain it and everything. It's all connected, but with the timeline and everything. This is Wells from. I mean, not Wells. I'm used to seeing him as Wells. That season 1 version of him was killed off. This is another one from a different point in time. So that one wasn't killed. I think this one's from the future because the past one would have been killed if that one was killed. Okay, I won't even try to explain it. The Reverse Flash is back, and I really did. That's one of my least favorites of the season. I really don't see the point in bringing him back, considering he didn't really serve anything to the whole overarching plot. I thought him coming back would have some major twist, like him working with Zoom or something, and it just didn't. He was just there. I haven't rewatched it, but I don't remember anything like really important coming from it. In the second half, and that was in the second half, but it was toward the beginning, and I was talking about the villains already. But yeah, the second half was superior in my opinion. The high points of the season, it started getting bumpy, but the high points make up for that. I think it starts to get less and less episodic. Everything starts coming together and reveals and everything. It's really awesome. You get Cisco's vibe powers. Like he really could try, even though you see hints of him later at first, he starts using them, but you really start to see him start to master his skill and use it more and more to try to defeat Zoom and help them with that. And you actually get to see finally Earth 2 because that's all I cared about. Like I was first season with all the episodic episodes, I'm like, okay, this is good, but I really want to get more into Zoom, and I really want to get more into just going to Earth 2 itself and seeing how it's different, and seeing all everyone's doppelgangers. And we got to see Killer Frost, Reverb, Deathstorm, and it was just great. I'll talk about those later when I talk about their characters, but it's just so awesome seeing all those classic characters from the comics that everyone knew, and it turns out they were there, and it was awesome to see them. Seeing all their powers, once again, visual effects, everything was amazing. Zoom finally takes center stage and prepares his plan, and little bits and pieces start to connect and are revealed to us. There's several Flashpoint references, which that changes because completely the whole ending of the finale is basically Flashpoint, so I won't talk about that much because I have a whole discussion on the finale that I just added. But yeah, you get some Flashpoint references. You get starting with the particle accelerator, him trying to get his speed back, his powers by recreating the particle accelerator, which is what happened if you've seen the movie or know the comics. He isn't the Flash anymore. He has to get those powers back. So basically, that's a direct copy from that, just without Batman. um, then you also get Black Siren, Laurel. I haven't reviewed the Arrow seasons on here. I should really do that, but Laurel is my favorite, and they sadly, spoiler, killed her off. Surely, if you're watching The Flash, then they said that she's dead, but spoiler. They killed her off. Damien Dark killed her. I was so mad. I was so sad. I almost cried because Laurel's she's so beautiful. She's just so great. She's such a great actress, especially that showed in Black Siren and the Earth 2 doppelganger of Laurel and the Black Canary. And she actually has metahuman powers in comparison. She has the same power, but it's more powerful, and it's actually her. It's not like a thing that they make for her, like her Joker was. So that was more just like the comics, which is awesome. And they brought her back after fans are crushed when they killed her off. And yeah, she was just perfect. I loved her so much. That made that episode for me. Even though I don't think the episode itself was kind of disappointed, but she made up for it. Okay, now I'll get into the finale. Overall opinion, since it's fresh in my mind, I just started. I'm gonna rewatch it again, but I've been watching reactions, several discussions for it. I know it I know it really well, so I just want to get my thoughts out there. Overall opinion, I really, really loved it. It's definitely my favorite over the season 1 finale. Once again, I don't know if it's critically better because there's a lot that they crammed in here and a lot that kind of doesn't make sense. But overall, definitely as my favorite. This is my favorite, like my second favorite or first favorite overall, because the first two are really neck and neck. The visuals and animation were stunning. Like sometimes at some points of this, the animation, especially when they animate Barry and they slow it down, I'm like, I mean, it's a TV budget, so I kind of give them leeway, but it sometimes you can tell when it's good and when it's just for TV. But this was top notch. All the action, all the fighting, all their animation, and just the look of everything was stunning. All the CG. Then you get the sad opening with Barry crying over Henry's body after Zoom kills him, and it's really sad, and Zoom tells him to embrace his anger and to kill him, and Barry gets really mad, pins him up against the wall, and they start racing through the city, and you start to see a battle. And they introduce the remnants of, not remnants, the idea of time remnants, and that ends up being a big player in the whole finale as a whole. And first Zoom does it, and he ends up killing himself, and he tells Barry, you can do this too if you are willing to kill yourself, but you're not. And it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it kind of doesn't. Like, I kind of accept it, like all the science and smart stuff in the show. Sometimes it goes over my head. I'm just like, okay, sure, I accept it, because I can't prove it wrong. I just don't know what you're talking about. Like, this kind of makes sense because they're running back in time and placing a former version of themselves. It kind of makes sense, but it's hard to visualize, and it's hard to wrap your mind around that. But anyway, there were 2 Barrys eventually and 2 Zooms, and yeah, they were able to create time copies of themselves. We get the real Jay Garrick, who I called was the Man in the Mask. It's past 15 when it turns out my theory. I was so sure that Henry was Zoom, but it didn't turn out that way. So I was like, he's going to be the Man in the Mask, and he's going to be real Jay Garrick. And when he killed him off, and he said, my mother's maiden name was Garrick, I'm like, there's no way that they just included that line. That's going to mean something. And it turns out Henry from Earth 3 this time. That was the twist. Definitely didn't see that. Turns out he was the real Jay Garrick, Earth 3 version of his dad. And let's see. So that was really cool. Zoom's demise. I did not see this coming. I love it because I actually thought Barry was going to go there and kill him and then kind of realize what he did, because Barry's not that kind of guy. I understand he's lost his father and he's really, really mad at Jay. Or Hunter, you can tell him that he was not himself, the Barry we knew for the past 2 seasons, because Zoom past that point. I think he was really wanting to kill him, but he kept on. He still has his morals. He doesn't just run around killing people. But I actually thought they were going to go there, but they didn't. They let the time wraiths, which is a concept basically They copied Dementors from Harry Potter and they bring that up, which is really funny. But anyway, they have a lot of references in the show, which is awesome. They bring those back. They're kind of the... How can I explain this? I haven't seen the original episode with them in it, like episode 17, flashback, in a while, but they're like keepers of the Speed Force, and if you manipulate Speed Force, they chase you down, and they're old speedsters, I think, that are dead. It's really a cool concept, and they're like, you're messing with the Speed Force, and they like... It's really kind of like Dementors. They like steal your soul, or they kill speedsters that mess with the timeline and Speed Force and stuff, which is what they did with Zoom, and they carried him off into the Speed Force. And comic fans, you would know, I don't really have anything to show with him on it if you don't know, but there's several like actual obvious hints, if you actually know to look for them, that Zoom becomes the Black Flash with like the white emblem with the red, like ear things and the symbol on his chest, and the zombie looking like half torn mask. That's he becomes the Black Flash, and it's awesome. And they really, if you pause on that, if you're actually looking for it, he does, and it's obvious. If you don't know, it's called the Black Flash, and he's a classic Flash comics character basically. And I don't know anything about him really, like his character, but they're gonna bring that up somehow, some point, because they actually make it fairly obvious once again if you just know to look for it. So I think he's going to come back eventually. Maybe not next season, but the season after or something. It's really cool that Zoom became him. Because people were saying, like, the only Black Flash we know, like, his suit's black and everything, is the Black Flash. Like, but that's not the Black Flash, because it's a different one. He's Zoom. He has blue lightning and everything, but it turns out he is. Or he becomes him, which is really cool. So yeah, if you don't know the comics, that's probably confusing, but yeah. Barry, Iris, they put their relationship on hold, which I kind of liked and kind of didn't, because I know they're gonna end up together, and I ship it with all my heart, and I love the kiss between them, and them finally confessing their feelings in the past few episodes and saying like, okay, let's start this. Then Henry died, and Barry was just like, Iris, I know you still love me, and then they kissed, and then he was like, I just can't do this right now. She was like, okay, you do what you got to do, but I'll be here waiting for you. So that was enough for me, and it makes sense because when he's in that state, he just lost both of his parents. Well, now he's lost both of his parents, and he's in a really dark place right now. And it would make sense why he wouldn't want to be in a relationship like that with anyone. At least not to that extent. So, yeah, that makes sense. One minor complaint I have, which really irked me, and my friend thought the same thing. I love the original Jay Garrick design, like Who's Really Hunter, or Zoom. The original Jay Garrick, and like his like the lightning bolt, it was really true to the comic book design, the ones from like episodes 1 to 6 or something, whenever we saw him most. But they recreated the Jay outfit for the Earth 3 Henry version, and I really don't like it. It looked kind of cheesy, but I don't know, it's fine. Now once again, that's just a picky thing. That's just me and my friend, and I've seen several people that are saying that, but you know, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a design. I like the original one better, but anyway. How they use Caitlin in this episode, still no, I don't like it, and I'll discuss that as a major con for the overall season later, but the idea of using her as a hologram talking to Zoom, I'm like, Zoom, there's no way that you're just going to fall for this. You know she's like tricky or something, right? Because, I mean, they'd be playing him as dumb, and he's not dumb, as I'll get on later. He's a really smart villain. And I'm like, if he falls for this, then that was really kind of cheesy and cheap and unrealistic. But he ends up almost killing her, and I freaked out because I did not see the hologram like coming out. I honestly did not, because they locked Barry up, and because he's like raging right now, wanting to kill him, but and deal with it himself. But they don't want him to do that because he's running with revenge and anger. So they try to get Zoom back to Earth 2 by himself and close the breach, and Caitlin draws him in, and it turns out when he's about to kill her, it's a hologram, and then they like put the boot around him, and he accidentally throws Joe in there with him. So yeah, that was interesting. And then the ending. The ending I did not see coming, and it made the finale, because I loved Flashpoint, like the movie and everything. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix, I think. Flashpoint Paradox. It's fairly new, it's animated, and it's amazing. I love the original comic as well. And it's about Barry going back in time to save his mom, and when they get back to the future, that decision he made ended up like screwing the whole timeline up. That moment, I love how they have it shot where you see it's kind of iconic because obviously you've seen this so many times in the show and it's referenced to so long. Eobard, the Reverse Flash killing Nora, are about to, and you hear her scream. He's about to like stab her, and Barry, the real Barry, runs in and tackles Reverse Flash. I'm like, and they like the music swells and like that they so emotional. Like that's a big moment because at that point, if you interact with that at all, that was the first point he actually made contact with him. He just screwed the whole timeline up like for 15 years or whatever it was, and which is insane. And he'll definitely have to deal with the repercussions of that, and I'll get into that later for Flashpoint if they'll actually go there. But yeah, they were that's the comic version. That's exactly what happened. So I'd be surprised if they don't go there. But yeah, that was a twist, and I did not see that coming. Anyway, okay, the complaints. I'll get the complaints out of the way, and then get on this thing I loved about the season. So complaints, Caitlin. She was really underused. I hated the idea of her being held hostage for like half the episode, not really doing anything, just staying at the lab. She's really smart, and especially seeing her as Killer Frost. I didn't think they would go there with Killer Frost yet, but maybe she'd be a good version of Killer Frost, you know? Because I don't think at this point, especially, that she'll be bad. They hinted at it, but no. And in comparison to all the other characters, like Iris, those are the two main female characters, and with the addition of Jessie, like this season. She was just held hostage by Zoom, like the whole second half basically, and it was really, really annoying. And even in this finale, it was just about their relationship I think she could have been a big player, and they just kept her there, and she didn't show up until like the ending when she was with Jay, and she was like, he was like, you're gonna love me, you just have to learn to unlock your darkness or whatever. I mean, I wasn't a fan how they used her. I hope they do some good, you actually use her next season. As I already said, underdeveloped episodic villains. Bringing back Reverse Flash, I kind of already talked about that. It doesn't have a point, and they shouldn't have done that, I don't think. How Barry, unrealistically, they just let Zoom go a lot of times. Barry could have done something like in episode 18, I think they actually had him captured, and without a speed, he couldn't do anything. Technically, Barry, I don't think he would kill him at that point, obviously, because he didn't even kill him when he just killed his dad. I mean, when it came down to it, but he could have ran him to the pipeline, put him in there, then boom, the problem solved. But instead, he was just mocking him and like I got you, you can't go anywhere, and then it ends up backfiring, and he captures Wally because he gets away. Then Barry giving up his speed, which is really unrealistic because I know he might be thinking like, wait, if I react defensively when he has Wally and Wally's like gone now, he could, I guess, race and get Wally in and actually kill someone in the room. But technically at that point in that episode, they learned how to, with his thing on his chest, he was faster than Zoom. They actually said that. So he technically could have stopped him, which really annoyed me that he just gave up his speed. And he was without his speed for a few episodes, which may end up being major plot point this season, or later this season. The Metahuman Army, I thought that was the setup for the finale, and that was Zoom's plan to take over Earth 1. He made a Metahuman Army. That was epic. But it was really kind of disappointing. Led by Black Siren, hey, that was the best thing. But the overall concept of the army, it started out amazing in the episode. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to be fighting for 2 episodes like the end of Arrow, which is like the best thing ever. But then the end of season 2 of Arrow. But they just took care of them and defeated them, and it was like nothing of that ever happened. And it was kind of weird. Like all those, probably 100 metahumans running around, causing chaos, wreaking havoc around Central City. And you actually see that, and then they create a pulse. It makes sense, but just the concept, they were like gone like that basically, and problem solved, and it was just kind of okay. And the Jesse Wally teases, now that I've seen the finale and they didn't set it up, it seems like why? Like, they're just teasing us at this point because they know, especially Wally, that he's the main sidekick of the Flash in the comics, Kid Flash. And when they got hit with the matter or energy from them recreating the particle collision when Barry disintegrated, basically it hit them in the face, and you were like, oh, speedsters. I was like, at least they're going to show them in the finale getting their speed and cliffhanger, and you get to see them fighting together next season. But now, especially with Flashpoint, that they messed that up, it seems like all that was for nothing, and it's really disappointing. I thought they were leading up to it, but now as a whole for the season, since I've seen the finale how it ends, and they don't go anywhere with it, it's really disappointing, and they tease us several times. And that's just me, but yeah, I want to see them already do that. Zoom discussion. I think he's an amazing villain, definitely better than the Reverse Flash. And even though the Reverse Flash is kind of iconic, the main villain for him, which is really, and Reverse Flash is awesome as a concept and a villain, but Zoom is so creepy. He's actually creepy. And I was so sure there were so many theories, obviously, because he's completely masked. We already knew that Wells was a Reverse Flash in last season, at least past episode 3 or something. They were not making it trying to hide it all. I mean, they were making it obvious, but Zoom, they didn't. There were so many theories, and the most common theory, even for me, was Henry. That was Earth 2 of Barry's dad as Zoom, and that was, I was like, I would like have bet like so much money. I was like, okay, it's gonna be Henry, and you're gonna owe me a big time. But it turned out not to be Henry, and I was so sure. It was just who we thought was Jay, and it turns out he was just copying Jay. He was really Hunter Zolomon, and who's a serial killer. We got to see his backstory and how his both did his. I know his father shot his mother right in front of him, and then he got sent away. I think his father shot himself too after that. So yeah, it was kind of messed up childhood. So he's basically what happened to Barry, just he went psycho, and that ends up being a big point in the end. Where he's like, you're just like me, and you're witnessing your dad die like this is, you're gonna be just like me. Which is really awesome because how they had that back and forth, like you're just like me, kind of mirror image. I love that with villains, kind of like with the last season of Korra and Kuvira. They make that kind of comparison, and the finale especially. I like that concept of the hero being the same as a villain in a mirror image, basically. Especially for this, in the end, like they are the same. But just Barry knows how to cope, and he has people that care about him when Hunter really didn't have anything to do except embrace his anger. He didn't have a support group. He makes a good point in the last episode where the line exactly was, this is why you'll never beat me, Barry, because you're a hero and you have to save people, and while you're busy saving everyone else, I'll be busy winning. And that's a really good point, because the problem with every superhero, you have to be a hero, you have to save lives, while the villain can just wreak havoc and do whatever they want. You can't be in two places at once, really. And that was an awesome concept. And as I said before, he's a very smart villain. He thought everything through, basically. Like, when the city was under attack, they kept on... It turns out he was building this thing and sealing it from Mercury Labs to try to destroy the multiverse. And he was doing all of that and planning out every single building, like crumbling, using the Black Siren call. He said, I'm doing this so that they'll be distracted while they won't actually know what I'm actually up to. And that was a really... He's smart. He thought everything through. And he ended up being a great mentor to Barry as Jay, because when you think about it, he taught him so much. And he taught him the throwing lightning thing, which he does a lot now. If it wasn't for Jay, he wouldn't have done that, which basically Zoom taught him that. And he ended up teaching about the time remnants, which is a pretty useful skill. I mean, it ended up defeating Zoom for him, so hey. So yeah, he learned a lot from him and really developed Barry more, which is awesome, makes him an awesome villain. The use of Jay Garrick toward the beginning was really awesome too. I loved him. Even, before we knew he was Zoom. Iris discussion. As I said before, it's the complete opposite with Caitlin, where she's one of the female leads, but she was just taken captive. Iris was doing so much, and she doesn't really, she helps out at the lab and everything, and sometimes she helps in their plans, and when they act on those plans, she's there, and she's kind of support group for Barry. So she ends up being a useful member of the team, and she's so likable now. I hated like the last season or toward the ending. She's like, "You didn't tell me you're the Flash." I understand that for a little bit, but in the end, you know what he was doing. He was trying to protect you, and she just really came off unlikable when she was doing that. But this season, she was completely better at warning Eddie for the beginning and moving on from that. Finally confessing her feelings to Barry. Patty discussion. Great characterization from episode 2 and 10. I didn't expect her to be that developed. She ended up being so likable, and her and Barry were adorable. As much as I loved Iris and Barry, they were adorable. Like their date, like in episode 5, is hilarious. It's one of my favorite scenes, honestly. And her character, she's just adorable. She wants to join the Metahuman task force because it turns out Weather Wizard killed her father, I think, mugged him and robbed him in the bank, and yeah, we ended up seeing that, but we didn't know her dad was there. That was interesting that they brought that in there. But yeah, she ended up being a really cool character. The Wally discussion, she started out. He started out not very likable. How he was treating Barry and everything. I mean, you just don't talk to a person like that, even if you're like, what is he doing? Why does he always run away? Obviously, he didn't know he was the Flash then, but then he kept on mocking him about it, like, you're weak, you're scared, and everything, hiding in your bed. I'm like, dude, you don't even. That's just. It made him really unlikable, but obviously, he's there because we know he's going to be setting up, because he started toward the end of the season helping out the Flash and being there, kind of like Roy was in Arrow. And you know he's gonna join him eventually if you know the comics. He's gonna get Speed and help him out. But yeah, that's what I'm waiting for. He ended up being a really cool character, apologizing to Barry for everything. But yeah, he's basically there because, and I want to see that. That's honestly, when he's over on screen, I'm like, can you just get Speed already? Same with Jessie, because if you don't know, Jessie becomes Jessie Quick, another speedster. And she got hit with the same particle accelerator stuff. So that's probably going to come up eventually, even though she's on Earth 2 now. She becomes really likable and is cool. Her chemistry with Cisco, especially working in the lab, she's really smart. I think they had made a joke about on Earth 2 how she had 5 degrees and how that's not normal. But yeah, she's really smart. She was able to help out a lot more than Caitlin, which is sad. But whatever. She, as a new character, she was really developed well. The Harry discussion, he's, as I said, season 1, he's the best actor. Tom Cavanaugh, he's amazing. The same role as the original Wells back at the lab, but he had a gun. Obviously, he wasn't in a wheelchair, playing in a wheelchair, and he wasn't the Reverse Flash. And he was hilarious. How much of a jerk he was. He was a jerk, but let's be honest. Some of those jokes were really funny. Like when he turns out that he asks, "What did I do to offend Iris?" Like it was like the first episode he was there, and Iris was like, "You just look just like him," and he's like, "You killed her fiance." And he's like, "Oh," and then just walks off. You're like, "Oh, sorry about that." And he just walks off. But he doesn't say sorry. He's like, oh, okay, bye. he's just great. The backstory on Earth 2, he created the particle accelerator, basically the same Wells, just not a jerk. And he created Zoom, basically. And he starts out helping Zoom when we see that behind the scenes, but it turns out it's to get his daughter back. So he's not a total, traitor. It makes sense why he's doing that, and then he ends up turning on Zoom, obviously, and helping out the team all the way up to the finale. So he's like in every episode from that point, from episode 3 cliffhanger, I think. Vibe for Cisco. You finally get Vibe from the comics for Reverb. You see him do a blast out of his hand, but he can't control it, so obviously that's coming up if they don't do Flashpoint, or maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I'm so confused right now, and I don't know what they'll do, but Cisco's more involved. As usual, he's the humor in the show, creating all the references and everything, which is really awesome. The acting is really good for him. And yeah, he's just a great presence to be there, and he adds a lot of character to the show. And obviously, he makes all the toys, as he always says. Joe is the same. He has the most sympathy, and I'm really scared, since they didn't do it now, that they're going to kill off Joe eventually, which, no, don't do that. We already lost Henry. If Barry loses Joe, too, I swear, he's going to... If Barry loses Joe, he literally had no one except for Iris. And if... Don't even go there. If Iris dies, too, then Barry he wouldn't even know how to live. But anyway, I don't think Iris is going anywhere. Or Joe. But Joe, if you're gonna kill him off eventually, like in 2 seasons, he'd be the one to kill off because everyone loves Joe. He has the most sympathy. But yeah, just I don't really have much to say because he had the same role because he knew Barry the Flash since episode 1, so he's always been helping out kind of. He's just been more involved this time in the MetaHuman Task Force, knowing more about that, and yeah, just the same as season 1. So great. Barry, he was really strong characterization in this season. He was maturing and growing with the help of Jay, and he was learning from his past mistakes, learning about accepting his mother's death. Finally, this was really heavy on Barry's character all the way to from beginning to end. I think that was a major strong points of season 2. And prediction for season 3. What do I want to see? I had so many theories, but the Flashpoint thing kind of messes it up because Flashpoint kind of resets everything. He messed up like 15 years of time. So he could just come back. I don't know if they'll actually go there. I want to know if they'll. Obviously, they can't bring in Batman. The whole point of Flashpoint is he meets Batman, and the whole like Justice League is kind of like World War III started with Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and obviously they can't do that, but because they don't have the rights. But they could kind of switch it up. My friend and I was talking about it. Like Oliver's kind of like Batman when you think about it, just with the bow and arrow version. So they could make Batman Oliver, and he goes back and helps him. He could just take Batman's role. I don't know about the other roles who could fill in, but anyways, yeah, I just don't know if they would pull it off. If this is kind of a tease and they're going to go back and it's only going to last like a few episodes, because I don't think they can make a whole season about Flashpoint if they keep it the same, which they probably wouldn't, but maybe a half a season and then have another thing like Black Flash coming back for half, maybe. I think this might last a few episodes and then you're like, oh no, I screwed up the timeline. And I think what happens in the comics, he ends up having to run back because the Reverse Flash comes back and the universe is destroyed, and so he has to run back in time to outrun the blast for the end of the world. And like, I think he has to kill his mom to set things right or something like that, or his mom has to die again. So they might do that. I don't know. It's just so confusing what they could do since they don't have the rights to all the major characters. But yeah, they definitely set that up. Like, that's a direct parallel. And my original predictions were you'd start out and seeing Wally run around with Barry trying to stop crime, like the first scene. And then it's like, then you're just like, oh, they're a team now. How did that happen? And then they go back and fill in the dots like 5 months earlier. And then it sees Wally, like, discovering his powers, telling them. And he starts training with Barry, and then you get at the end of the first episode, you catch up and they're a team now, and that's the plot. And then you get a new villain, obviously. But now that we didn't even get a hint of it, and Flashpoint kind of messed everything up, I don't think that'll happen again. I was kind of sure something like that was going to happen, whether it'd at least be teamed up eventually sometime next season. But I don't know. Same with Vibe. I don't know how his powers will develop, if he'll actually become a hero now. Same with Caitlin or Killer Frost and all that. This whole thing kind of messed it up, but I'm happy because I hope they do Flashpoint at some point. And when you think about it, this kind of messes up everything, like their whole DC TV universe, because that means he never became the Flash. Reverse Flash is, I don't know, he stopped. I don't know if he killed him or not, or just knocked him out or whatever. But his mom's safe. His dad never would have died because he never would have went to prison. He never would have got involved in any of this stuff. They would just be living a normal life. And that means he never would have met Oliver. So the threats they face together, same with Supergirl. He wouldn't have helped out Supergirl either because he never would become the Flash. So this kind of affects every single show if you're going to be realistic about this, actually, when you think about it, because Wells never would have died. He never would have become the Reverse Flash because Eobard wouldn't have stolen his body. And he never would have created Star Labs. He never would have created the particle accelerator in the first place. He never would have created the Flash. And Barry wouldn't be the Flash, which you see from like the season 1 finale of him peeking in the room. He vanishes. So when you think about it, there's an endless list of things that wouldn't have happened. Caitlin wouldn't be there. He never would have went to live with Joe or Iris, so they probably wouldn't Well, I think they said they knew each other, but they wouldn't have gone that close. So, you know, everything kind of is twisted at this point. You never know what would happen. Literally, they could do anything, kill anyone they want. Like, you go back to the future, Joe's dead because he, you know, I don't know. Anything can happen. Which, obviously, I think they're going to reset it because you can't have a show just like that. I think they're going to reset it. His mom's going to have to die again, and then they're going to go back in time. And then go back to the correct time point. But yeah, it's so confusing. I hope that made sense. I'm trying to summarize my thoughts because I'm really excited and I don't know what they're going to do and if they'll actually bleed it into other shows, because that would be the realistic thing because he's helped out in all the other shows. But yeah. So yeah, the season finale was a doozy. It was great. Let's see. Is there any last thoughts? But yeah, season 2 was great. There was a lot to talk about. I think I'm happy with what I said, all my discussions and everything. Yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, be sure to watch CW's The Flash. There is going to be a season 3, obviously, because it's their most successful show. I knew that. This fall, I think October 4th, if they keep with this. I know it's going to be October, I just don't know the date yet. That's normally when they do the first, like, Tuesday there. So yeah, catch up if you want to. It'll be on DVD probably September, because that's normally what they do. Give you a month or so before season 3 starts. So yeah, I'm happy with what I said. I really enjoyed it. I love this show just as much, if not more now. And yeah, I hope they really kind of connect and solve some of the confusing things, which kind of makes sense, kind of doesn't. But yeah, I think they explained as much as they could. With this show, like I told my mom, because she's always so confused when she watches it with me, when you have a show with alternate dimensions, alternate Earths, infinite Earths, a multiverse, time remnants, time travel, doppelgangers. They could literally do anything, and it's so confusing because there's so many possibilities scientifically and just both with the comics and everything that you could do. It just gets so confusing, and I think they're doing a really good job so far because it's going to be a little bit confusing anyway, but yeah. I think they do a pretty good job. Season 2 is great, and Zoom is great, and I hope he comes back as Black Flash, maybe. That was great. Bye.